Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Leadership Thread with Dr. Peggy Polonus.
I'm Dr. Peggy Polonus. Join me on each episode where I unravel the story that shaped leaders, tracing the thread that led them where they are today. Because leadership isn't born in adulthood. And thank you once again for joining us on the Leadership Thread, education, ethics, and sustainability.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
Taxi! This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And joining us now here on Katz and Cosby to talk about the SAVE Act, which is a voter ID act, especially with photo ID. It shouldn't be a tricky question, but it seems to be for the Democrats. And joining us now is John Fund, a reporter with National Review. John, why are the Democrats fighting against this? In fact, Chuck Schumer just said a little bit ago, he's calling it Jim Crow 2.0. How is it Jim Crow? How is this racist to ask for photo ID?
Well, it's a strange position that he has, because to enter federal buildings, including the one that Chuck Schumer works in, you have to have an ID. To get married, you have to have an ID, whether it's gay or straight. You have to have an ID for almost everything in life except voting. And it makes you wonder, why is voting different? And the answer is perhaps there's something going on behind the curtains that Chuck Schumer and his friends don't want us to know about. So the big hang-up in opening the government these last few days has been that the Republicans wanted the Senate to vote on the SAFE Act, which says in federal elections you should have a required photo ID, the same photo ID you need to apply for Medicare or Social Security, and you also should prove your citizenship at some point in the process. And the Democrats refused. So President Trump finally said, well, opening the government is important, but the supporters of the SAFE Act secured a promise that John Thune, the Senate leader and the Republican leader in the Senate, will try to insist that the Democrats, if they want to filibuster the SAFE Act, they have to stand and talk, and they must keep the floor and keep talking, or else a vote will be held. And I think the Democrats are going to run out of arguments pretty quickly, because 75% of African Americans support photo ID, 82% of Latinos, and 71% of Democrats. So if it's a Jim Crow bill, it's a very strange Jim Crow bill, because all of Chuck Schumer's voters support it.
You know, also, I was looking at the American public supports it, too. If you look at some of the latest polls, it shows more than 80% of the American public, overwhelmingly Democrats also, too, including Republicans, they want it. So what is this about with the Democrats? I mean, why is there this vocal resistance, and why are those so? Is it just because President Trump is talking about the SAVE Act? Is this another Trump derangement syndrome, John Fund?
Well, look, first of all, I don't think President Trump should be talking about nationalizing elections. We really do have a good reason for keeping elections at the state and local level. However, we have some clues in New York City why the Democrats like Chuck Schumer are so opposed to this. A few years ago, when Bill de Blasio was mayor, the Democratic appointee on the Board of Elections was interviewed by James O'Keefe at a party, and they asked him, well, do you think voter fraud is a problem in New York City? And the guy on camera said, of course it's a problem. The buses line up outside certain precincts. They have people vote who are paid in cigarettes. And then they bus them to another polling location where they vote. Of course it's a problem. And you know what Bill de Blasio's reaction to that was? Did he call for an investigation of what those practices were? No. He got the guy fired from the Board of Elections as the Democratic appointee.
You know, that really does speak volumes, just like you said, too. And it makes you wonder, why would you not want to have full faith and credit in the election process, just in general? I mean, especially at a time like this, it's the midterms. The stakes couldn't be higher. The other thing, too, John, there are so many calls.
The stakes couldn't be higher is precisely why they don't want photo ID.
Exactly.
Remember, Kathy Hochul almost lost the last governor's race.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They want to make sure. And look, it goes back to, they didn't say anything when the borders were wide open, who was coming in. You know, President Trump says up to 20 million. Now it's voter ID. We don't want that. How can people have faith in the election process, John Fund?
Well, I think that the good news is if you don't live in New York, the process is getting better in most states. We're rolling back the early voting and the mail-in voting that was put in place during the COVID pandemic. And, of course, every time they go to the ballot in New York City and New York State, the voters expressed the support for reform. New York City voters voted for term limits. New York State voters rejected having most elections conducted by mail. So every time the people are directly consulted, they vote the right way. It's the politicians sitting in Albany in their incumbent protected seats that block any reform.
Well, I mean, this is John Catsimatidis. If a large percentage of Democrats, common sense people, and Republicans and independents say you need voter ID, you need a voter ID to get on an airplane. You need voter ID to get into an office building. Shouldn't we be pushing that more?
Well, I think that eventually there can be public pressure that moves people, and maybe this is something that we need a ballot initiative on. You know, remember, a few years ago, we got term limits in New York City because some business people got together and they put it on the ballot, and it passed. And, in fact, it passed twice. So I think that at some point we're going to have to say, just as a court said, you know, you can't have non-citizens voting in New York City elections, maybe we need a ballot initiative, and the courts will approve that after the voters have their say, in which they say, look, the voters themselves are going to have to put in photo ID.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, John Fund, and we always enjoy talking to you, and keep putting the truth out, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you for your wonderful radio station. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.